With Spider-Man Far From Home coming out pretty soon, I'm continuing my Spider-Man reviews with The Amazing Spider-Man. And before I get on with this review, here's a little message. Before I go on, don't forget to smash that like button, smash that share button, and if you're new here, smash that subscribe button so you can watch more reviews like this one, and give a little tap to the gray bell icon for notifications on my latest uploads. Back to the review. The Amazing Spider-Man was the first of the reboots of the Spider-Man character. It came out in 2012, and this time it was directed by Mark Webb. And this took a little bit more of a realistic-ish approach to the Spider-Man lore, where Sam Raimi's trilogy tried to be more like the early comic books in terms of tone. The Amazing Spider-Man tried to tackle the story as a film, with more realistic characters and a more realistic scenario. So yeah, I don't like Sam Raimi's trilogy. I feel like they're just not good movies. The first one, like I said, was way too Power Rangers-y to be taken seriously as a movie, and the other two had such stupid characterization. I mean, the first Spider-Man movie had really dumb characterization as well, but Spider-Man 2 and 3 really had some stupid characters. And look, I'm not even a comic purist, because, like, I don't read comics, I don't give a shit about that, but I just feel like, as movies, the Sam Raimi trilogy is, they're just not very good, in my opinion. So, rewatching The Amazing Spider-Man, damn. Like, The Amazing Spider-Man literally does everything right that I feel like the original trilogy got wrong. Now, some people are going to say, oh, you only like this because he has web shooters. Which, look, that's a pretty big assumption to have. But, yeah, even though I do love the web shooters, considering they actually show Peter Parker's intelligence and show his ability to adapt to certain problems he comes across, but what makes The Amazing Spider-Man so great is that the characters are way more realistic and identifiable. First, let's talk about Peter Parker. Some people call him a skater punk who is just way too cool to be Peter Parker. But, for one, skater punk? Really? I mean, yeah, he rides a skateboard, but he's clearly not a jerk. He's clearly a very nice guy who, when he sees a kid getting bullied, he tries to stop the whole situation. Two, let's talk about him being quote-unquote cool Peter Parker. Yeah, he looks good, but he can't really help that. But you clearly see that he stumbles with his sentences. Like, whenever he sees a pretty girl, he can barely form a sentence, and he's just socially awkward. That's the great thing about Peter Parker in this movie. He's not visually, a dork. Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is much more like a Peter Parker that would be around today. He's still socially awkward. He doesn't really know how to talk to people that well. I mean, yeah, he knows how to talk to people, but socialization was just never really his thing. And that's very identifiable in my opinion. I mean, it's kind of hard to come up with things to say to people, especially if you're the one starting the conversation. Also, even Flash Thompson's better in this movie. Because, like, in the original, he's just like this, cliched bully. He's like, come on, Parker. And he's just kind of like this boneheaded, like, bully or whatever. Whereas Flash Thompson in this movie, yeah, he is a bully, but you slowly start to see his progression throughout the movie. Like, when Peter loses somebody in his life, Flash Thompson doesn't go over to bully him, he actually goes to console with him. He's actually a three-dimensional character, and by the end of this movie, he's actually trying to pal around with Peter Parker. And some people would say that all Sally Field as Aunt May does in this movie is worry, even though she has every reason to be worried in this movie, because she's trying to raise her nephew, whose parents had to leave him behind and they mysteriously disappeared. Someone that is close to both of them dies. On top of that, Peter Parker just mysteriously going somewhere and coming back with bruises. Like, how can she not be worried? She's being a concerned parent. And now let's talk about the thing in this movie that is exponentially better than the Sam Raimi trilogy. The love interest. That is Gwen Stacy being played by Emma Stone. I never liked Mary Jane Watson, the one played by Kirsten Dunst. I thought Kirsten Dunst was good in the role. I'm not complaining about her, but the way the character was written made her so unlikable and bitchy and complainy. She cheated on all of her boyfriends. She constantly needed saving. She was a complete damsel in distress that was only on screen to make Spider-Man look good. Just someone to look pretty in Spider-Man's arms while she gets rescued, which is a complete waste of a character. Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man? She's intelligent, she has a little crush on Peter Parker, and is kind of charmed by his little awkwardness. She doesn't cheat on anybody, and when the Lizard confronts her, when she's backed up into a corner, she doesn't go, ah, just wants Spider-Man to come and save her. No, she gets a couple of chemicals and tries to burn the son of a bitch. Hell fucking yeah! And one thing she says at the end of this movie, which... I'll just say this, it's involving rain. It's raining outside. The way that her character is handled initially makes you go, wait, oh god, are they gonna do the Mary Jane thing? But then she says one thing, like turning back to Peter Parker and saying something. And it's like, wow, you get it! You get it! You're a smart character! I don't know why anyone wouldn't love Gwen Stacy in this movie. She is the complete antithesis of what that stupid Mary Jane Watson was. She actually is an interesting character in of herself. And there's one weird thing in this movie that people call a forgotten plot thread, where Peter Parker is trying to look for a specific blonde-haired character, and they're saying that he just kind of drops the whole thing and it just goes nowhere. It doesn't go anywhere, but I think that was done on purpose. And here's why. When Peter Parker has dinner with Gwen's family, her father just so happens to be the chief of police. And they start getting into this debate as to whether or not Spider-Man should be taking crime and taking justice into his own hands rather than letting the police do their job. And really, the entire whole thing of this movie is that the people around him influence him, and he influences others. This moment right here where he's having that debate with Gwen Stacy's dad, Captain Stacy, the chief of police, he starts to realize, maybe being a vigilante who's just trying to get revenge isn't that good of a thing, and I should probably stop that, and I should actually use my powers to help people. And it is never more clear than what is done during the bridge scene when Spider-Man's trying to save this one kid. Oh my god, this is the point of the entire movie right here. Like I said, his Uncle Ben, Captain Stacy, they're all influencing him to be a better person. And so he influences this kid to try to help him out of the situation by saying, put on the mask, it'll make you strong. It's such an inspiring moment, and it just comes back so well later on in the movie during the crane scene where he's swinging on these cranes. Again, I'm not going to go into very big specifics, but as I said before, people influence him, and he uses that influence to influence other people. And in this case, these crane operators, especially one of them, is, shall we say, paying it forward, like saying, we're going to help you, man. It's such an inspiring moment. I love the crane scene. It's so good. The visual effects are incredible during that scene. The music, again, is inspiring. It's so perfect. And let's talk about responsibility, because the whole line where it's, with great power comes great responsibility, isn't in this movie. Well, let's take a look at what actually is the responsibility quote here.
You're a lot like your father. You really are, Peter, and that's a good thing. But your father lived by a philosophy, a principle, really. He believed that if you could do good things for other people, you had a moral obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here. Not choice, responsibility.
Some people would say that that's tired, seeing as how they didn't just say the original quote. But, like, how is it tired? Like, they don't do this over and over again, it's just said once. Like, if anything, you could make an argument that with great power comes great responsibility was tired when doing the original Spider-Man trilogy, because they kept saying it again and again and again and again. I'm not saying it was tired, but they only said the responsibility quote from Amazing Spider-Man once. It's like, how is it tired? And again, this is more relevant right now, because it's not just with great power comes great responsibility. No. The whole point of this quote is that regardless if you have power, everyone has a responsibility. Everyone has a moral obligation that they have to stick by, and they have to do what is right. I feel like this quote actually translates well even more than what with great power that comes great responsibility, because it's not just talking about power, it's just talking about everybody. You have a moral obligation to do things, and when you have that moral obligation, that's what's at stake. Responsibility. I think that's a genius line. Also, for some reason, people complain about this one scientist character not having any closure, and some even claiming that it's offensive to the actor's country where he comes from, which I'm guessing is India. Like, how is this offensive to Indian people, the fact that he didn't get any closure, the character? Like, the story doesn't serve the actors serve the story, which even then, there's nothing in the writing that makes it very clear that he's Indian. No, it's just a character who just so happens to be played by an Indian person. So it's like, how is it offensive? I mean, there's not any horrible stereotypes of this character. It's just, he didn't get closure, but the story didn't need him to have any closure. Like, he wasn't that big an important part of the film. So it's like, how's it offensive? And now let's talk about what most people would consider the weakest part of this movie, Dr. Kirk Connors, aka the Lizard. Again, I think he's done very well in this. On the surface, does it look kind of weird that he's turning people into lizard people? Yeah, but again, there's a reason for why he's doing this. There's actually a very good reason. He's turning people into lizard people because, especially with using the serum on himself, people don't have to get amputated anymore. He wants to make sure that this never happens to anybody again, and he feels like that making the human species an even better species where these kind of things don't have to happen anymore, he feels like he's saving everybody. And again, I feel like it's done very well in the film. And there will be some people who say, oh, but it's just the exact same origin story all over again. Why do we need to see it again? I didn't like the way they did the origin story in the first Spider-Man movie. So, here we are. Like, I think it's just this is just a better version of that. And some people have complained about the suit looking like a basketball. I mean, at least I can actually see a teenager building this kind of suit. It's more practical, it's more flexible. I mean, it's just a more practical suit. Like, seriously, how's a teenager gonna make a suit that looks like this? Again, I like the suit, but if you're gonna pull the costume argument on me, then I would just say that this is a more unrealistic suit to make than this suit. And some people will try to say, well then how is he able to build web shooters? Well, for one, he got the webbing fluid from Oscorp Industries, so we don't know how many packets he got. And even then, I'm pretty sure he could have just found some spare parts to make this. Which again is used to broaden his intelligence, showing us that Peter Parker is smart instead of telling us that he's smart. Because like with the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, how am I supposed to know that this is a genius level kid? Like how? All the decisions he makes are completely stupid and he never does anything tactical. It's like how am I supposed to know that he's smart? At least I know that this Peter Parker is smart. They show us the intelligence. Yeah, he makes lapses in judgment, but at the same time, he tries to learn from those lapses of judgment, especially when, you know, embarrassing Flash Thompson. He uses the lessons he learns to better himself, and we actually see an evolution of the character. So yeah, I love The Amazing Spider-Man so much. The Amazing Spider-Man, I feel like, is one of the best comic book movies ever made. Granted, we're in an era where my top 10 best comic book movies constantly change because of the years and whatnot, but The Amazing Spider-Man, I feel like, is the second best Spider-Man movie ever made, right behind Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This movie has great characters, great character development, fantastic action, breathtaking CGI, breathtaking music. This movie gets everything right that I thought the original Sam Raimi trilogy got wrong. So yeah, what do you think of The Amazing Spider-Man? I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this, aren't I? Yep, probably am. But whatever, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like. Share the video so that we can get the channel circulated. Don't forget to support my Patreon on my Patreon page, or if you can't do that, then consider supporting me through my PayPal donation button in the description below. And if you want to see more, click this.